when she took her life, at that time, I was like a cutter when I was that young, and this was it wasn't really a thing then as much, so that got me a lot of ostracized by a lot of people I was around, for doing that. And then she took her life, and a lot of people were especially my family were we were so busy worried about you that we didn't even see she was depressed. She was one of those depressed people that would mask it with anger and stuff and laughter. She would hide. She hid it really well. I was just cutting myself and crying all the time, and and it kind of I felt like in that movie when they're wrong kid died. They're telling me we're so worried about her or about you, we didn't notice what was going on with her. And on top of all that, my sister is gone.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures. We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at, few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are because loved. We are loved.
Hello, my name is Matthew Rindge. I'm from Melbourne, Florida. I lived in addiction my whole life, struggling, living in darkness. I didn't ever think there was going to be a way out, and my grandma ended up finding a place called the Home of Grace. I came here not knowing what to expect, and God has just opened doors for me and just turned my entire life around, and this is my story.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Jesus Loves Addicts, and another, wonderful tale of God's redemptive power in our lives. And so today we are blessed to have Mr. Matthew Rindge with us today, who, this is a gentleman who spent 23 plus years in active addiction, and prior to his own lived, sounds like, in a household plagued with it, and but has been sold out not only to a recovery lifestyle, but to the Lord Jesus since 2021. And so I'm very anxious, having seen bits and pieces of what your recovery life looks like, having worked around you, Matthew, to really kind of dive in and get to know your story. So tell us about that. You talk about growing up in darkness. What does illuminate that for us? What does that mean?
So not only was there a lot of
addiction in my family, it wasn't even referred to that as that. That was just how everybody lived, It
was your normal.
Yeah, using substances to feel different. And then especially
mom and dad.
Yeah, mom and dad. And then with my father especially was struggled with depression his whole life. And then my sister as well, and I did too, especially as a teenager, and my sister eventually, she ended her life when I was 23, I was 23 and she was 20. She ended up taking her own life, because of this depression. My dad, he passed away a couple years before I came here and had just given up on life, and.
So your dad also committed suicide.
Yeah, he died from cancer, but he just
he had given up.
Didn't do anything to fix it, or address it.
Yeah,
he made a choice to not do anything.
Yeah.
And mom,
my mom, she's like a functional alcoholic, they would call it. She wouldn't call herself an alcoholic, but that was something I kind of had to struggled with my whole life, because I would see her drink, but I'm not the kind of person that can drink and maintain a job. I drink until 2 a.m. and then show up for work at 6, half drunk still, or worse, So
yeah.
She's able to she has her own house, she works, she's always had a job my whole life, always. She was the one who paid the bills most of the time, and was there for me every time I was in jail. But she still uses to cope with things.
Well, and you knew that you couldn't drink without consequences, and it doesn't sound like It
took me 20 years to learn that, but I did.
Same.
Yeah, almost. I hate to rank levels of sadness, but to me that's almost more sad, that functional aspect, because you hide that internal dying, right? Your mom certainly wasn't happy inside, and there was different deaths that she probably experienced emotionally that she was going through with her drinking. So very sad. But so before you ever touched alcohol or drugs, you were exposed to it from day one.
Well, yeah, and I started smoking weed and drinking when I was in my early teens, because it was there and stuff. But would just dabble here and there. More my interests were more in like my skateboarding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I was a teenager, and then I started using like harder and harder drugs while still in high school. As a teenager, and that kind of alienated me from my group of friends that I would like skateboard with and play music with and stuff.
So you were outpacing them, and they started distancing themselves from you.
Yeah.
You already used differently. Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't start using until high school?
No, I was using like hard drugs in high school.
You started smoking marijuana and experimenting.
Yeah, I was like 13, 14.
13, 14. So in your teens. So what did the preteen years look like? And I'm sorry, you mentioned, are you older or younger than your sister?
I'm older.
You're older.
Yeah.
So,
so I was always like a I could keep myself entertained kind of kid. So I would keep to myself. I could sit in my room as a younger kid, and play with my Legos for hours on end, read books for hours on end, and so I didn't socialize a whole lot, and then my sister was the more outgoing one. But then so we started using about the same time, even though she was younger than me.
Were you using with her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially around the time that she took her own life. Me and her were I always say she's my best friend that I happen to live with, our friends were.
Oh, you were roommates?
Well, we lived
in the house.
We lived with my parents.
You said, I'm thinking of the 23 when that happened.
She was living with one of my friends, dating another friend of mine. We all ran with the same group of people.
Your lives very
We all
entwined.
weren't that far apart in age either.
No, she's only 2.5 years.
Yeah. So what kind of, before you started experimenting with drugs, elementary, growing up like that, what did school look like for you? Does that make sense?
I was a gifted kid in elementary school and stuff. I had all accelerated classes and everything. But by the time I got into junior high and started getting around drugs more, was the time when school was really boring to me. We had our gifted program and stuff in elementary school where we would go to build boats and stuff and model trains and everything at a different place. Yeah. But once I got into junior high, it was still advanced classes, but it wasn't as...
it wasn't challenging.
No.
You were bored.
I was bored and I didn't want to be there, and I had no plans of really... I didn't have plans of going to school, but I didn't really... By the time I'm a younger teenager, I didn't really have a whole lot of hope or plans of living to be a super old person, because that depression was already starting to affect me, and I really didn't care to be alive. My life was already... Things weren't always going my way.
At that young age, you already were...
As a teenager, definitely.
Wow.
I had a hard time making friends or being... I got picked on in school for being smart. Then I got picked on by the smart kids for not being nerdy enough. So
yeah. Oh, my goodness.
You didn't feel like you fit anywhere.
Right.
What did your parents use? How did your parents' use affect the home? What did discipline look like? What did holidays look like? What was there a family cohesion, or what was...
So they mostly were weed smokers and drinkers. And then my dad was very, we'd just hole up in his room, which I would do as well. So the few times when I would get in trouble, I'd be all right, I'm just going to my room then, whatever. I don't really care. You're going to ground me, whatever. I'll go hide in my room. I'll sit in my room for a week on end just on my own, you know. But my sister was the one that would go out and get in trouble and then get in these big fights and stuff, you know. But
well, if you weren't really social, it's not the end of the world to be told you can't go anywhere.
Right.
It's okay, I wasn't going anywhere anyway.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of family unity, or were you guys just splintered the whole time, and were there...
My mom definitely tried. My dad just was such a, I want to say recluse. He just didn't want to be around people, would just hole himself up in his room. And she would try, though. I did Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts when I was real young, and she was the den mother. We did bowling when I was real young, and she would, take us bowling for our bowling league, and so she tried, and then we would go do family stuff here and there. But my dad was often not there.
Not there.
You know, he didn't want to go.
Did he do any? I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Did your dad try to do anything with his depression, or was this just a thing?
Well, like it was very much for him like a thing. Like he would, when he talked to me about it when he was older, you know, he's like, I'm in a depression right now. I'm like, yeah, you're in your house, like with the blankets shut and in the dark. Like I'm depressed being in here.
Yeah.
Because I started to like learn from seeing him that I didn't want to be that way. But like when I was a kid, you know, he just very much lived in it. And then like he would try to medicate it with Xanax, which was like, so Xanax is like my, like they use the term drug of choice. Like I would use any drug. I didn't care. I used all of them, but Xanax was that's the one that my brain would always be like, you can handle that one.
Did you use
go
his?
Get your prescription, at first, and then I
got your own.
I mean, I can just go get my own.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that by the time he started talking to you about his depression, that what that would stir up in you was not compassion but anger? Were you angry at him?
I felt bad for him, really. By the time
so it
we
was
would
compassion.
talk about it,
Okay.
you know, like, I mean, I was still. It was really like that. The only times that me and him talked was like I had just gotten out of jail, and I was wanting to change my life, but I didn't know how. And I went up there he was staying away out of the county where I grew up. So I went to stay with him for like a couple of nights, you know, and I'm using and stuff. And, but I did sit up with him and talk to him like probably more that weekend than I talked to him like my entire life, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Like if you added all the words up and just told him, you know, like the way I've like learned to cope with my depression was by watching him. Like when I don't feel like being around people, I make myself go be around people. Like even going outside.
You learned from him to do the opposite.
Yeah. And this was after my sister had passed away, you know, because so she, you know, when she took her life, at that time, I was like a cutter when I was that young. And like, this was like, it wasn't really like a thing then as much. So that got me like a lot of like ostracized by a lot of the people I was around, you know, for doing that. And, then she took her life, and a lot of people were like, especially my family, were like, you know, we were so busy worried about you that we didn't even see she was depressed. She was one of those depressed people that would mask it with like anger and stuff and laughter. She would hide. She hid it really well. I was just like cutting myself and crying all the time, and you know, and it kind of I felt like in that movie when they're like wrong kid died. Like they're telling me like we're so worried about her or about you, we didn't notice what was going on with her. And on top of all that, like my sister is gone.
Did you notice? Were there any signs to you that?
I mean, she would threaten it often and stuff, but like I was probably honestly more worried about myself than about her at that time. Sure, really.
Yeah.
Well, also, when someone threatens it a lot, in all honesty, we are taught that when they're talking about it and threatening, that they tend to not.
Also, if you're around that person, I mean, sadly, you become numb to the threats, right? I mean, it's. I hate to say that, but you start to not take them seriously.
And I think you almost reassure yourself. I would, you know, like, well, this sounds serious. She has said this though, but she won't do it. I can't fathom. I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would think it in my head that I'm going to do it, sit there with a gun or whatever, or like a knife, and like think about doing it and couldn't do it. So I didn't think she was going to do it either, even though, I mean, she was always the more courageous one out of us, really. You know, like I was more content to be in the back.
So your parents got divorced?
They didn't get divorced till she was 18.
She was 18, and you were how old?
I would have been like 20.
20, okay. So you guys were adults when they got divorced?
Yeah.
Okay. Who, you know, you said you started using around 13 because it was all around you. Who actually introduced you to it? Or was it friends or family?
I mean, so they smoked, my parents did, and then like all of their friend group and my friends who, you know, like I would hang out with some of their friends, kids and stuff. All their friends smoked. And so, I mean, I don't remember exactly if we stole some of theirs or if one of my friends brought some over.
Y'all just started.
Yeah.
And how quickly did that ramp up for you?
It really didn't, because I was, like I said, I like to skateboard. Like I wasn't really, you know, it's hard to smoke weed and skateboard. So I didn't really, that wasn't like a thing I would do, but it definitely like was a way I would unwind and stuff. Like when I was done skating for the day, it real quickly became like something I would have to do. Like we would travel, we would go to like Tampa, because Melbourne's like in between Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami. We would go there and skate all day, and I would bring it with me to like smoke on the way back after we're done skateboarding all day and stuff.
It's like your 5 o'clock glass of wine at the end of the day, but it was your pot.
So at what point did the drugs start to become more important than the skateboarding, right? Because at some point you step it up. Is that
right? So like I got really good, and I was like entertaining the idea. Like I thought this was going to be something I could do as like a job, and unfortunately, like for me at least, something like skateboarding, like you have to sell yourself as well. Like it requires more than just being a really good skateboarder. You have to be a personable person. You have to get people to like you. Like you could be the best skateboarder on the planet, but nobody's going to pay you to do it unless you convince them to do that.
That's
you know what I'm saying? So in order to deal with the people I had to deal with to market myself, I guess I would say, I would start using to chill out around them.
To be social.
You know what I mean? And then I also would get in trouble when I would skateboard, and it eventually like slowly slid into where because for me, like the using drugs and the feeling you get when you land a skateboarding trick, or like playing music with a band, those feelings are like the same feelings.
Yeah.
But like I could get high all by myself without having to do all this work.
I didn't have to socialize at all.
Yeah.
Was it ultimately your using that put the skateboarding and everything else to
Took
rest?
it off the table?
I mean, I still would do it for a very long time. Like even after my daughter was born and everything, I would skateboard sometimes. But I made peace with the idea that I wasn't going to be like a professional at it, because I didn't want to do all the other stuff that I eventually learned that you had to do to be that, you know?
So you talked about using so that you could kind of do that PR stuff, sell yourself, as you say, right? That's interesting too, because I had some friends in that world, but it's curious. But were you just naturally a recluse, or did you have social anxiety? Like, would it make you?
I just really like, so I quit saying I don't like people, because it's not really true. I feel like that's like an enemy or a lie that the enemy puts in my head. But I'm very content being by myself, and I have a lot of ways to entertain myself. You know what I mean? So it's not so. I just would rather be alone most of the time. You know.
So it wasn't anxiety about being out there. It was just a preference. I
would get like social anxiety, but what I've found since getting clean, you know, is like that a lot of that's like I have far less anxiety now living in recovery than I ever did taking Xanax and medicating on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about one thing before we get too far into this, because your story, as all do to a degree, but your story may be a little more pronounced. The spiritual travels and the addiction travels are really parallel. So you had mentioned before we got started that you were an atheist. Now, was your home life atheist, or was God introduced to you as a child? Was there any kind of concept of God in the home growing up, or was the home atheist?
So my dad didn't have any exposure to religion. My mom was forced to go to church when she was a kid. And that's why she didn't make us go. But like both my grandma that sent me here and my grandma that lives in Melbourne still, I would go to church with them when I was real little, just because I thought it was cool. But like, so I got a Bible. I was like 7 or 8, and because I would read so much. Like I learned to read as a kid, and I tried to read it, you know. And I feel like what I got out of it kind of was like God will give you whatever you want, you know. And then as like my life things, I didn't get the things that I wanted.
So you got mad.
I was like, God doesn't care about me. There is no God. And then I just started reading stuff that parallels that, you know, like
that. Okay.
I know you've talked about it in our morning devotions about some of the, you know, the
anti-religious like stuff, like, and it's just crazy. Like, it's hard for me to explain but I mean, I went the opposite direction, entirely.
Well, and I like what you're saying, because you didn't just go that direction. You started feeding that, right? Mm-hmm. That's the side you started to feed. Your what you read and everything fed that idea that he doesn't care about me, and that transition to he doesn't exist to, So like I was I had all the arguments for religious people to like explain to them how there's no God, like why this is why there's no God. You can't prove this, and like I even have a cross that's upside down on my arm I tattooed. I was that anti-religious. Yeah. A lot of it was like a rebelling against like just organized religion, not even like, because like my coming here to the Home of Grace, like I saw how skewed my conception of God even was, but a lot of it was like, the religion aspect of it, and organized religion in churches and the things that people do in the name of God and even Jesus. Well,
and when you don't have it directly in your home, like no influence whatsoever, you also don't have anybody that's going to challenge and say, hey, wait, this really isn't the concept. Let's sit down and talk about this. It doesn't, and it's not intentional. It didn't cross their minds to have that conversation with you. Right. They didn't have it either.
Yeah. Well, so my mind goes to this moment when your sister commits suicide. If you were in that place, did that just simply enhance the no God concept for you at that time? Was that something that doubled down on the anger or the...
In a lot of ways, because like, so I have family that's religious, and there's a like, not to get into theology, but there's a like belief that if you take your own life you go to hell, and I remember sitting there like wasted and being like, well, if she's going to hell, I'm going to hell too, to see her, was the kind of stuff I would say, and get really defensive about stuff like that. But it wasn't like I like blamed God for... I blame myself for losing her more than God. At that point in my life, there was no God. Like, I mean,
there was not even a God to blame. No, so it had to be you.
Yeah.
And you said it, we didn't say the word, but when, why her and not me? That survivor's guilt comes, and it's like, not only did I miss something, it shouldn't have been her. Right. And that becomes, that's that belief.
And I'm her big brother. I was supposed to like keep that from happening, so.
I know we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but I'm curious, do you feel like you have worked through that, or do you still kind of blame yourself?
Yeah, I've dealt with it a lot. Like, so the last time I went to Florida, I actually, from, the program of recovery I'm working, I had written a letter to her, telling her I'm sorry. And I'd been to her grave. It'll be 19 years in December that she's been gone. So I've been to her grave multiple times. And that was the first time I went, sober. I brought my daughter actually there, which was really cool. She had never been there. And I read the letter to her, and like that helped a lot as well. Oh, wow. But I've dealt with it. Like when it first happened, we handled it by getting wasted, but
sure.
Well, we don't know there's another way. We do what we know. Right. That's something we are good at.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's how you handle everything, right? I mean, when you're in it, that's how you celebrate. It's how you mourn. It's how you, do everything in between. So,
well, what about your parents when that happened to her?
So I was actually living with my mom at the time, and her and my dad had split up. And, I'm trying to think, so I remember when it first happened and we all went back to the house after, like, there was her kitchen was literally like, it was like a liquor store. There was like cases of beer piled up in the kitchen, and so the reason why they divorced, my dad had quit drinking. He would still like smoke weed and do prescription medication, but he didn't drink anymore. So he told my mom, like, you got to quit drinking or I'm going to leave. And she said, all right, I'm not quitting drinking, and that really messed my dad up, and so he ended up, they divorced, he moved out, and everything, and him and my sister got really close in that time, and I didn't find this out till later, but he was very close to taking his life at that time, because of everything that happened, but I wasn't ever close with him. They were closer even when I was kids than I was with him. So, she spent a lot of time with him, and I feel like there was a lot of like blame
between all of them for what happened, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, my mom just got wasted like I did about it, you know?
Right. People tend to do. Yeah. Was there ever any like animosity or, you know, conflict between you and your dad or you and your parents? Like, I know you were more distant. You're saying your sister was closer. Was there ever any volatility there, or was it just
like me and my dad would get in really bad fights, but
like physical or
not so much physical. I mean, it got that way sometimes, but you know, just neither one of us. We were both like he would yell and I'd yell back, and then we'd just go to our rooms, you know, mad at each other. But my dad was also like he built computers when I was a kid, so like I had a computer that I played with and stuff. He helped, like gave me he would give me electronics. He gave me my guitar amp and stuff. But he also like he lacks like, so like nowadays they would probably classify him as like autistic. I know his dad definitely would have been, because he had like a whole ham radio like room in his house and never talked to anybody. Like couldn't, like my dad lacks communication skills. Mine are not much better, you know, but better than his.
Yeah.
So,
beg to differ. I think you look quite good. So,
I'm going to school for it, so I better be getting better at it.
I think that's great, though.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you mentioned you were gifted as a young child, and I know one of the things that's been fun to follow in your recovery walk has been your continued education and how you're knocking it out of the park there. So good stuff. I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
All right, so you'd mentioned prison, right? So we're kind of all over the place. How many times did your addiction take you in and out of cells?
So I didn't ever end up in prison. I did, the most I ever had to do was like 6 months.
Jails?
Yeah, jail.
Okay.
You know, but like the kids I grew up with, I mean, some of my friends aren't getting out of prison until like 2040 something. You know, they've almost all of them that are still alive have been put away for a long time. But I managed to stay out of trouble for most of my life, you know, until I got to be like, you know, early 30s, and then I ended up getting arrested on Xanax and woke up in the bubble in the jail in a turtle suit, like with a cut on my face. I had blacked out at like 9 the previous day.
What's a turtle suit?
Turtle suit's like you got no drawers on, like it's like a suicide jacket.
It's a suicide jacket in the jail.
It's more of
no, your arms are free.
No, yeah, it's like a poncho.
You can't
with no drawers on. So you
nothing. You can't
choke
bend
yourself
it.
with.
Okay.
You cannot
it's
bend
real
it.
thick. It's like made out of the same thing as the mat you're sleeping on.
Okay.
Yes, and it's miserable.
Very uncomfortable.
But it's for the threat of self-harm.
Yeah.
Because I blacked out and
so they Baker acted me before they arrested me, but I woke up in the holding cell, in the cell, sleeping on the floor, with a bunch of like other crazy people in there, like the worst part of the jail you can be put in. And I didn't know what I even did to be there, and I had this cut on my face, and I'm asking the cops like what I did, and they're like, you'll find out at court. And I'm like, oh man, I like killed somebody or something, and I went to court, and it was possession of Xanax that I got charged with. So I ended up getting probation for that and like failing miserably at probation, and ended up getting 6 months for that charge. And so that was the first time I was somewhere in my early 30s when I'd actually sit in jail for a while. And like up until that point, I had always done construction, so I was able, it didn't really matter that I was using or whatever. But my boss that I was working for at the time, he came to me that Friday before I got arrested and was like, because I was taking my Xanax like before I would even get off work, but I was taking it like earlier and earlier. So he came to me that Friday and he's like, are you all right? Like, you seem a little off. And I'm like, no, man, I feel great. And he's like, you're not using drugs? I'm like, no. And then I got arrested like that Saturday. Yeah. And then I got out, but I had to go to the mental institution for a couple of days because I was Baker acted. So I'm like, called him on Monday. I'm like, I guess I don't have a job. And he's like, yeah, no, don't worry about it. So
don't worry about it as in you can come back or no job. I got you. Okay.
So I say all that to say, like, when I got out of jail, I found it hard to find a place to work. So I go start working with a buddy of mine that I grew up with that, is like in the strip clubs at the bar every night after work. So I
deeper down the path.
Yeah. It only took me like a week or so to like fall even worse into addiction. It really like just getting out of jail, because I grew up around a bunch of people that had been in and out of jail, but like I remember still that sting of that like rejection when people would find out like, oh, where you been? Oh, I've been in jail for, and they'd be like it was that same kind of feeling I got when like my friends, when I was a teenager, they're like, you did cocaine last night? Like reject, like, and so then that just makes, all right, well, I'm gonna go do even more cocaine. Like
you go to the people that aren't offended by that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I started living around people that were, just living the lifestyle I had been around my whole life, just making and selling drugs all the time and not really caring about having a job or any of that stuff, So then, I lived like that for another year or two before I was in again. And it was after that, just in and out, for little things I get out for. Sometimes I'd have to sit down for a little bit of time, and like 2 or 3 times before the last time I got out, I remember being like, I can't keep doing this. But I would get out and it was like, I'm just going to let loose a little bit, take it, and then I'll figure out how to, and then before then you're back in it, right? And not even wanting to leave, but I still
there's that insane thinking, right? Just doing the same thing, yeah.
I still have like journals because I write like constantly, and I wrote like even when I was in my addiction, and I have like journals where I'm like talking about trying to convince people to just take this car I have, which isn't even my car and it doesn't even have a tag on it, and I don't have a license, but let's just take it and drive, and we got drug addiction too. So, but I'd be like, let's just go, let's just leave here. But that was like the genesis of the idea that led to me coming here was, that realization that I couldn't keep doing that,
Now you've been through, sounds like at this point, several different jail visits. Have there been any treatment attempts? Were there any in and out?
So every time I was in jail, like I was, it wasn't drugs that were my problem. It was the cops that arrested me. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't I love that. I wasn't really like concerned about not using anymore. I just didn't want to be in jail anymore. But
it was never mandated by the court. You never had to go to a treatment, anything like that.
I don't know that they would have really. I never asked for it, and it was never offered to me. Yeah. So, and a lot of times, like Florida's got some crazy, like rules about stuff like that. Like I was in jail with no bond for some silly charges. Sometimes, like you get arrested out on bond, and then if you get arrested while you're out on bond, they revoke your bond, and so I couldn't get out for that. Like that was one thing that like opened my eyes being up here. Was how lenient they are in Mississippi to allow people to come here to like the Home of Grace with some serious charges. Yeah. Like, I was like, I've told guys here, I've been like, I think I would, if I was facing that much time, I would probably just not go back, to be honest with you. But no, I never got offered that, nor was it really like in my mind to do that, you know, to try treatment. I did think vaguely about it before, like the last couple of times I was in there, like I could go to rehab and get off, especially when like the
like for a legal benefit, not
no, when like the opiate addiction was like so bad, I had no idea how to. Stop. That was like the one that really, like other drugs, like I can put down really, but like when you get so deep into like using like heroin, fentanyl, pills, even like there comes like it becomes impossible to imagine how to stop. You know,
so that one you did want to stop. That one you entertained the idea of
Absolutely.
How can I do that? Okay.
Well, and some people just don't know how to make it through withdrawal. That's completely different. You're not as physically affected. I'm not saying you don't go through withdrawal with other ones, but opiate withdrawal is the flu from hell.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know that it's going to end. And when one day it's terrible.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what drove. So when I was living at home at my mom's and I'm trying to get off, you know, the opiates, and I would detox myself at her house, you know, and my grandma was living there at the time. My grandma that paid for me to come here. And, you know, like I would make it like 3 days and I would be like, it's been like a month I've been off this stuff. And like, but as soon as I got well enough to walk, like I could walk around the corner and get dope, like, or sometimes I can get somebody to just bring it over, you know? And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to stop this with it right here like that.
Right.
So that was what was like when my grandma was like, you know, what kind of help do you need? Like the best my brain could come up with was that I need to get as far away from Florida as I can for as long as I can.
Good for you.
And that's what ended up with me here.
So this was the only treatment program you ever, okay, so how in the world?
We would call the Brevard County Jail where I'm from, the jail, that's Brevard County Detox. You know,
yeah.
It's the treatment center there. They send you there for 3 months and you'll be detoxed by the time you get out.
Yeah.
But you just proved that jail is not treatment. Though.
No, right.
And that's the thing. It's like, well, no, she or he is fine. They've been in jail for 6 months. They'll be good. No, nothing changed. They just stopped using.
Yeah, detox is not treatment. That's right. It doesn't change your internal motivations. And treatment won't either unless there's something happening for you anyway, right? But but my curiosity is, here's this guy in the darkness, as you called it, either you're probably vacillating still between anger at and the concept of no God. How in the world do you end at a faith-based program? How is this? How do you come? Yeah, but how did you even agree to that? Like, what's
desperation, really? So my grandma, my great grandma, like lived in Ocean Springs. My grandma grew up here. My mom had been up here. I have never been up to Biloxi or Ocean Springs, and so a cousin of my mom's, I believe, had gone through the Haven, and that's where, like, when my grandma asked me for help, and I told her I need to get as far away from here as I can. You know, and I'm still like trying to fight withdrawals and still getting high and stuff. So I couldn't really give them a better answer than that. You know, so she got the name of the Home of Grace from my cousin or from my mom's cousin. And, you know, I remember when I was still kind of sick when they got me to like fill out the questionnaire thing on the computer and everything. And then they ended up saying I could go, but COVID had shut them down. So like it ended up being like a 2-week window. They were like, okay, you can go, but you have 2 weeks, so you have to be there. And like, I was just so resigned at the time, like nothing, that was like, when I talk about darkness, like the utter, like abject despair, like drugs were not working. It wasn't even fun anymore. And like, so a lot of my life, after my sister took her life, you know, like it's not to say there weren't times where I was like, I just need to end this all right now. I've sat there with a gun in my hand with a needle that has enough to open it to kill me. And it was always, I can't do that to my mom kind of thing, you know, that kept me from doing it. Like that's not a very kosher thing to do, you know, to take her only kid from her. But I mean, I still thought it all the time. And then like really, like I couldn't stop using drugs and doing the things I was doing that got me in all this trouble. So like even worse than that almost to me is like my friends that are in prison for 25 years, you know. So the last time I was in jail, I got out, and for the same kind of stuff I had been in there for, my buddy had just gotten 25 years. And I remember thinking like, I mean, he's already done a couple bids, but he's like my age, you know. I'm like, at the in 25 years, like I would just be like, are you going to leave at that point? Like leave prison? I would just be like, can I just stay here?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what are you going to do he's going to be like 62 when he gets out of prison, you know? And for me, that was almost more terrifying. Like being in prison, I'd rather be dead, but I had no hope, you know, and that was... So they found the Home of Grace, and I remember them like telling me after the fact and stuff, you know, like, are you sure you want to go? Or telling me before I came, I mean, that,
who's they?
My grandma and my mom, like, it's faith-based. Are you sure? And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I remember my bigger thing was like, it's a 90-day program. And I'm like, that's not going to be long enough. Like 90 days. Then. I've been in jail for 6 months and gone right back to using it. And I remember I had a lawyer tell me when I tried to get probation to get out of jail one time, and he's like, you've been IV meth using for how long? And he's like, it takes like a year for your brain to fix itself from using that for that long, you know? And I just wanted out of jail, so I took the probation. But I remember him saying that, and I remember telling them I need to be gone for like a year and a half even. And so when I was like, man, it's only 90 days, it's not going to be long enough, was my biggest worry. And then like, them taking my phone. I was like, they can take your phone? Is that even legal? Like, can they do that? But
of all the things, that's the
well,
thing
if you really you had no belief in God, I don't know that hearing the words faith-based, there's no way that you have anything to base that on what that's even going to be. Like it's just right now, just like you said, get me as far away as possible. But you can say faith-based all day, but if it literally goes nowhere, what are you saying?
Yeah, that's true. There's no concept of it, so why not? But so desperation brings you here. What keeps you here, right? I can't imagine, and I could be wrong, right? But I can't imagine that the first 2 weeks was a struggle for you to stay. Like I can't imagine you're going like, oh my gosh, get me out of here at some point.
I don't know that I ever thought that.
Really, that's phenomenal.
So like I showed up and we were still doing like a quarantine when you showed up for COVID, and so I had enough dope to like make it up here. Like the last time I did dope was in the hotel Monday morning before I came here. So like by the time, and we went to the women's campus first because my uncle didn't know how to get here. So by the time we got here, I just wanted to get in bed and lay down, you know. But
need to go to sleep.
Yeah, so I spent like 3 days in there, like kicking, tossing, turning, taking showers every hour or two, and like getting mad at my neighbor because they had somebody in the building next to me, or in the room next to me, like asking me if I wanted coffee and stuff. And like I remember coming out of that room, you know, which is like building 2 right here, and being told to move over to building 6 and thinking like I can't make it over there, like physically, you know. But I mean, there was times when like because I was like weaned myself off, but I was still sick, you know, and like we would have chapel in the cafeteria. And I remember when they were telling me they would go down the hill to the chapel, I was like, y'all walk all the way down there every day? Like, is that even possible?
Funny.
But like I would walk farther than that to get dope, you know, but
amen. What a great realization, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those steps are hard. when you really do feel like, I don't know how I'm going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Like I physically don't feel like I can do it. And that's a really, it can be a horrible place to be, but it can also be a really good place to be for the last time.
But that is such a profound statement though. And I don't want it to be lost because it's true. I say this all the time to people, right? I mean, in your addiction, right? In your recovery, you'll find all kinds of reasons not to go to a meeting. I'm tired. It's raining. It's foggy. I'm not going to, but boy, if you were craving in your addiction, you would have gone barefoot in the snow 3 miles to meet your dealer, right? If you had to. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And so we really have to be very intentional about being that dedicated to the recovery process. So I love that realization for you. I mean, it seems so simple, but it's really very profound, right? So, so you're talking about that physical struggle, right? You get here, there's that physical struggle of being in early withdrawals. I'm wondering that when did you say, because I can't imagine as an atheist, as you described yourself, who had all the arguments for anybody who wanted to know why there was no God, was there ever any internal feeling like I got to get away from that aspect of this program, or were you interested in the dispute, or did that get laid down pretty quickly for you?
So like I remember meeting with Aaron, who was my counselor when I got here, and having some of that kind of like contentious negativity. Like I told him, I'm like, look, like this is working for me. Like I'm not going back to living like that. And basically saying like this whole God thing, like I'm not worried about that. I'm not going back to using. So like if you like rub me, basically telling them like, if you rub me the wrong way, I'll get another counselor because I'm going to make this work, you know? And like, man, God just blessed me so much with him. He was a huge part of me finding my faith, because if at any time, like me being so sensitive, but I'm also curious. So like my inherent curiosity got me to like, I'm like doing the John packet. I'm like reading, you know, I read all the time. So I'm like reading, I'm listening at chapel, you know, and wrestling with my unbelief. And he was just enough to like keep me going. And then when I would pose questions to him, answer him, but he's not like didn't try to push anything on me, because I feel like if he had, I would have quickly rejected it and been not necessarily out the door, but you know, God knows what would have happened.
You would have closed a door. I would say that he handled that exactly the way you needed it in those moments.
I love that. I wish you make me wish I had met him. I'd never met him, but it's so important that he gave you that room to squirm a little, right? And because that's what it took. So, well, because this part of your story is what really fascinates you. So what is the aha moment for you? Where does the light go on spiritually? Where does that resistance?
I think it was like a few steps, you know, like I do remember like being in jail and reading my Bible because it was the only book we had in there, and it would like bring me peace sometimes. Like I shared at our devotion just the other day, you know, the only verse I knew when I got here was Matthew 6:34, you know, don't worry about tomorrow will worry about itself, because I would read that before I had court in the next morning, because like it would give me peace and I wouldn't stress, because oftentimes going into court, like there's nothing I can do tonight that's going to change what's going to happen tomorrow. Sometimes you don't even know what choices you're going to have until you get to court, you know? So I remembered that. So even before you got here, your spirit was beginning to... I would say so. That was really, especially that last time. So this is important. This is the last time I was in jail. I got arrested for very, very serious charges. And I thought I was going to prison. Like I told my buddy when I got there, you know, like I'd take 3 years right now and just ride out, because I got caught with like a lot of dope and money and stuff. And so I ended up, you know, my lawyer's telling me 40 months you're going to do. It's a 40-month minimum mandatory, you know, up to 15, 20 years. And I remember being totally resigned to it. Like, this is it. I'm going to be here for a while this time. Like asking my mom to help me with money on my books, all that stuff. And I got called into court one day, and they dropped all my charges down to just simple possession felonies. And I remember even sitting next to the guy in court, and I'm just like on cloud nine. And he's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like breathing. I'm like, I don't have to go to prison now. Like I can sit in county jail for this. And I did 6 months that time. And I would tell people, I'm like, this is God. Like I'm not going to get another chance like that. Like I've lived in that county my whole life. The cops know me. Like I don't even know why they let me get off on this time.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today.
you know, and I would tell people like, this is like a God thing, you know, I'm not going to go back and live that way when I get out. I'm going to find another way. But it wasn't like a serious kind of belief in God. It was just kind of like what you say, you know, like a God thing, you know. So I ended up, you know, once I got here, I remember Two Real Tony speaking one night and saying, you know, if all you came here for was to get off drugs, that's such a small thing in the eyes of the Almighty God. He's here for so much more. He brought you here for so much more than that. And it was like he was speaking right to me. And it was in the chapel, or not in the chapel, in the cafeteria. We called it the chapelteria at the time. So I remember, you know, because that was what I came here. I came here to get off dope and like maybe find a way to work like a normal job again, so I don't have to do illegal stuff and worry about the police chasing me down for the rest of my life. That was my goal when I came here, you know. Not be dope sick anymore. And I remember sitting out by the lake and just like really that was the time, like, because there had been thoughts in my mind about like what it would be like to go back to Florida after so long up here. But I remember sitting out by the lake and just being like, all right, I'm up here for however long I need to be up here, you know. But I mean, I still wrestled with my faith and unbelief for a long time after that, you know, and sitting in chapel, you know, and the enemy telling me like, you can't be a Christian. You know, you were an unbeliever for so long. You got an upside down cross on your arm. And really like the moment when I would say, I know I was saved, you know, October 23rd, and I was in chapel and we didn't have chapel on a Wednesday at the time. So we were just in there, me and like two other guys listening to music, and that song Reckless Love came. Well, we played a few songs that I really liked, because that was always like, music's always like been my biggest thing. I got like, I play music, like I never knew that there was Christian music, like until I got up here. I was like, this stuff is kind of good, you know? And I would feel that power when I was in chapel, you know, and just being a music lover, that's the only music you get in the program anyways, you know? But I remember listening to a few songs, and then that song Reckless Love came on, and like I moved from where I would sit in the back to up in the front, you know, because not growing up in church, the whole altar thing is still weird to me, but I will sit in the front row if nobody else is in there. Yeah. And, man, I was like telling God, you know, I'm like, I'm sorry. The first time, like, I really like would say I tried to like speak to God. You know, even like a foxhole prayer, praying, asking God to like somebody post my bond to get me out of jail is not the same thing to me, because that's not really God I'm talking to. I was talking to him in there, and I told him, you know, like, I'm sorry for fighting against you for so long and being mad at you. And I just felt like, not like him tell me, but like he doesn't care. He told me like, I don't care, you know, about all that. And that was like, I got chills on my spine just saying it right now, you know, and I knew, but I still like 2 nights later would be sitting in chapel like, you can't be a Christian, like blah, blah, blah. I would literally sit there and just repeat like, God help my unbelief, like over and over again sometimes. And then like, from knowing all the like contradictions and loopholes, I guess you could say, that exist in scripture from being an unbeliever, the enemy will try to use those to convince me, to
get you to go backwards and doubt it. And you're like, no.
But I remember Bobby Morris, Brother Bobby, used to be disciplinarian here, and I was talking to him about it one time, and he told me, you know, we use the things that we don't understand in the Bible as an excuse to not do the things that we do understand. Because I was asking him about some kind of like, you know, confusing topic, and he was like, focus on the things that do make sense and let the rest go, which is, I mean, there's scripture that tells you to do that, not to worry about things that are too lofty for you.
Right. Yeah, in a silly way, and I know some of my analogies are really silly, but that's so funny because, you know, if I were to plant an apple tree in my backyard, you know, not being an arborist, as that thing started to come up, it would be hard for me to imagine it producing apples. So if I stopped watering it, I'd never allow that thing to grow, right? So I love what you just said, right? All I need to know is something is growing there. I've been told it's an apple tree. I'm going to trust that. I'm going to keep watering it, right? So to keep watering your faith, right? You don't have to understand every aspect of it. He will open your eyes to more of it as you grow, right? So I really, really love that. So that moment that you talked about, again, I hate to, but I just love the fact that we can really see this going from darkness to light, as you said in your intro. Was that the moment that you feel like you really saved. Kind of let
you knew that you were
Christ in, is when you apologized? And
yeah, I would say that. And then but I didn't get, like, Aaron ended up baptizing me, but I didn't get baptized until right before I moved off campus, which ended up working out really well and was like a real God thing as well. But I mean, that was the point where I would say I knew there was a God, but like the accepting Christ and the other aspects of it, I had to like wrestle with for a while after that.
Explain that.
So like, I don't know how to explain that. So like, coming from a not religious background, you know, the beliefs that certain people have that not even all Christians agree with each other about certain things. You know? So like, even still, like, I don't know what kind of Christian I would even qualify as, because my beliefs are very different from a lot of like typical beliefs of other Christians. I go to New Life, which is a Pentecostal church technically, but they're not like classic, like Pentecostal, you know. I can wear shorts there and they're cool with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know entirely, you know, your faith story, but I would argue that the way you put it, I would say you probably know him better than some who know about him. Because what you're really talking about is, you're saying I had to learn about doctrine. And right, that's how I hear in your explanation. You had to learn, okay, now that I've put my faith in this God, let me learn about what he said. But the reality is he introduced himself to you loud and clear. You actually knew him, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I would say like a lot of like the staying here at the Home of Grace for a year and a half, that was like a big part of it, because I mean, I would still go to chapel all the time, even when I was in, you know, third and fourth grade and didn't have to be there, you know. And so like being exposed to that much church helped me with, like you were saying, like the doctrine, like the understanding really, like in the way that you get it here at the Home of Grace is so much like more pure. And I think a lot of that comes from the heart of the people that come here are not coming here to like bring people into their church. They're here to like literally change lives. Yeah. And that you can see, I feel the difference in the way they preach at you, you know, preach to you and talk to you, you know. And like one of the most powerful sermons I received here was Sydney came and he brought a law enforcement officer with him. And the guy talked about his son being in addiction, you know. And I grew up like, you know, I was not raised to get along with the police, and like, so like I remember somebody telling me at church, you know, they were talking about like when they raise their hands at church, they were like, just like when, you know, the cop tells you to surrender. I'm like, wait, when they do that, I run. I'm not raising my hands. But, you know, so I did not get along with the police. And man, he shared about his son and his struggles with addiction. And I remember him ending, he wasn't in contact with his son, and he didn't know what he was doing at the time, or whether he was even alive, you know. And man, that was like such a powerful thing. And I went up and shook his hand after. Like, it's the only time I've ever like touched a cop willingly.
Yeah.
But like just that, the way you get the gospel preached to you here, and the varieties of it too, was essential in like me and my faith walk.
I want to say, and help me if the words don't sound right, like getting to hear like your true belief and how your belief system has grown, especially after getting to hear how you came up, that there was no God. You didn't have to know any of that.
A blank canvas.
That's it. And it's like zero doubt in my mind, having spent 45 minutes, an hour here, that the Lord is in you and that you know him intimately, and you didn't have to stay. You chose to stay. And it's more than that. You moved off campus, but it didn't stop there. You're still staying. You're still showing up. And I like that one of the first things you said, you love to learn. You love to read. That never went away. You've got the God of the universe, and there's so much more to learn. Like, you're never going to get bored.
Right. And so I like to write a lot. And like I was saying earlier, like I would write in my addiction and everything. And I have like stacks of journals. I started having, my mom would send ones I had up here when I was in third phase and stuff. And like, I remember being in my mess, you know, and being like, I wish I could help people, you know, people like my sister, you know, like, cause I mean, I know what it's like to
battle that,
to be one to just end it all. Like, I remember people telling me after she took her life, you know, like how could she do, like, how could you get to that place or whatever? I'm like, I literally was just there last night, like wanting to end this all. Like it happens all the time. I'm like, how do you not understand how people do this all the time, you know? And so I wanted to help people and I'm lazy in a lot of ways. So like I was just like, oh, I'll just like publish these journals that I've written. But like really all they are is just like a whole bunch of mess and like how to be miserable. Like if you don't have an answer to how to fix all that, then it's just nobody really wants to hear about how bad it sucks to be miserable.
Yeah.
Like, they want a solution.
Yeah. And
they want hope.
And being here in the program still in like third phase and starting to like write, you know, God was showing me like I can use these words. And to me, the words, God has given me a gift of words to use to reach people. You know, that's his gift to me and my ability to use them. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's like with my degree, my communications degree, like I'm trying to use my words to reach people, you know, and I even like I've been posting, I just posted this morning something I had written when I was using, you know, and I'm like complaining about this person I'm with and I nod out at the end of it and it just turns into scribbles. But like, I've been trying to like post that and post like this is where, and like trying to figure out where my identity would be with like an online presence and how to reach people that way, you know, and I'm still praying about that.
Well, you know, it's interesting because you said you were a gifted student even at a young age, and that's such an appropriate title because it is a gift, right? And so it reminds me of, and correct, Vinquay, am I saying? Vinquay, she talked about, we just had this wonderful heart and soul here, another guest, and she talked a little bit echoing what you're saying, right? The gifts that she had in her addiction were just being misused. Yeah. And then in her new life, he's teaching her how to use them for his glory. And that's what I hear in you, right? You've always been gifted because it is a gift. But you just misused it.
We were using it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And that creates chaos, right? I mean, I can use a hammer to secure two pieces of wood together in a really positive way, or I can break bones with it, right? If I'm misusing it. So, really wonderful stuff, man. What would you say God is working on you currently in, right? As you're growing, is there some spot, that place, and God is really kind of leaning in and saying, okay, Matt?
I would say so. And I was thinking about this as you were talking about using your gifts for wrong and stuff. And, you know, one thing in my addiction and I wasn't like exposed to like, definitely not like a godly relationship with my parents. Like when they got divorced, I was like, y'all should have done that a long time ago. Like, I don't know why you waited this long. And then especially with like my daughter's mom and like any female in my life, like I'm manipulative. Like
You've never had a healthy relationship.
People, yes. And like, even like I've had to learn a lot of that was just, you know, I joke with my friend, like, God has blessed me with being awkward and antisocial. So I haven't really had to struggle with that a whole lot, but like I'm having to learn how to, be friends with people, members of the opposite sex, you know, like, and like have like a healthy relationship, you know, and like not use my words to get what I want all the time because I'm real bad about that. Even when I don't want to be doing it, like I was just literally doing it the other day, you know, and not even intending to do it, you know.
Manipulation.
Like unconsciously, like just using my words, like saying things in a way to get what I want. You know?
I get because I operated out of manipulation the majority of my life, and I recognize it. I'm super aware of the words that I speak because I know that I can talk you out of your shoes and you will want to give them to me. It doesn't make it right. And so it's something I ask the Lord to continuously help me to be aware of and let me be quick to own it and speak it out loud and say, hey, wait, you know, this is what I actually meant. I might have shared that before. I literally was terrified to even compliment someone and say, hey, I like your shirt because I was so scared that they would give it to me. I mean, I was terrified and I was like, manipulation is witchcraft. I don't want to do this, but I speak well and I'm very persuasive. And so I have to be aware of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I remember, and this was a story I would tell people when I was using it, not a believer. Like I would argue with people that were believers, and I remember arguing with people that were
Christians, you know, and I remember seeing the light, the doubt, and then the light go out in their eyes when I made them doubt their beliefs. Because, I mean, as a believer, you know as well as I do, like, I doubt my beliefs often, you know, like, I don't know about you actually, but I will say I do sometimes, you know, and to have somebody like question me like that, you know, but the power of words, like I could like convince somebody to not believe, you know, like, and so to learn how to use them in a positive way.
Right.
Like you were saying,
and do the exact opposite. Yeah. Good for you for saying that.
Let me speak to that, though, just for a second, because that's actually one of, this will be a little bit of a rabbit trail. But Matthew, my prayer, my hope for you is that you will get to that place, and I understand that, but that you will not doubt it. So here's what I always say. Nothing at this point can make me doubt my faith. Now, does that mean I'm always walking a disciplined life? Absolutely not. I can walk an incredibly undisciplined life and make a really bad ambassador for Christ, unfortunately. I apologize. But I never doubt my faith. And I hope that you get there too. But I want to just say something to the churches out there, that the ease with which I think Christians can be influenced to doubt their faith is largely a fault of what's happening in the churches, right? We have kids that spend their life in Sunday schools, and by the time they go to high school, what they've really learned are a bunch of fun little games and how to eat, you know, green bean casserole, but not how to defend their faith. So the minute they're confronted with other views, they're going to doubt it. The church needs to step in to stop being a carnival ride and start training us up to be able to defend the faith. We are to be able to defend the faith in season and out. I welcome discussions with atheists. I love that stuff. Now, you know, I can get to places where my only answer is, I don't know, I'll look that up for you. But never am I taken off my foundation, because I have spent time securing that. And that nothing about me. That's what the church should be doing. We should all be there. So I appreciate you saying that, because that's a wake-up call to the church, that so many are quickly brought to that place of doubting their faith. So, you know, that said, Matthew, let me ask you this. And if this is an unfair question, then that's okay, because we're going to kind of wrap this up. And I usually ask people, what would you tell a struggling addict out there? I want to ask you a different question, because again, I love this parallel walk here. What would you say as a new believer to a struggling atheist out there? Are there any words you would have for them?
Oh, that's good. So like probably the most difficult part of like my walk, as far like is, you know, the Great Commission, is to talk to people about Jesus. So because I was an atheist for so long, I know my mind, or the enemy, will stick in my mind all the reasons why I would have rejected the things I'm thinking to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is what they're going to tell you. They don't want to hear that, because when I was an unbeliever, I didn't want to hear it. And I'll say, like, so I have people from like recovery groups that I go to that are not Christian at all, that go to church now, that I've never said a single word about Jesus or God to, that go, and he even told me because of me, and I've never even talked to him about it. So I feel like walking, sometimes for some people, now for me at least, walking it out is the best way that I can help an atheist, and waiting for them to come to me, you know, being an example to them, you know. But that's not to say that some people aren't, I mean, supposed to go out there and talk about Jesus to people. But I mean, for me, it's just walking it out and being an example. Yeah.
And an example that looks absolutely nothing like the person you once were.
Right.
So your changed life is your exclamation point to them, really, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if you want to come talk to me about it, like it says in Peter, like I always have a reason for hope to give you, you know, but I still wrestle with like approaching somebody about it if they don't approach me first.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I think there's a time and place for both, but God'll let you know, right? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Clearly we're supposed to speak it, but our lives also speak. So, but it is both. And I know you do that. I've seen you do it beautifully. So, Matthew, thank you so much. And I want to
thank you.
Yeah. really wonderful. And it's been a pleasure, by the way, to I did not know you and your addiction, but I have had the opportunity to see the last couple of years of what God is doing in your current life, and it's been a treat. But I want to kind of capitalize on something again, looking at this idea of going from darkness to light, specifically related to belief versus unbelief, right? There are lots of parallels to addiction versus recovery, but something that Matthew said that I loved, and I'm going to use the reverse of it first. There's a famous pastor whose name escapes me right now. I'm going to borrow his words initially, or his concept. He talks about this. He said, and this is to the Christian out there. If somebody asked you to say why you're a Christian, and your answer starts with "because I," then you're already missing the point. We are not Christians because I'm not a Christian because I said the prayer of salvation. I'm not a Christian because I found God. I'm not a Christian because I did anything. I am a Christian because He. I am a Christian because He found me. I'm a Christian because He turned the light on in my heart. I'm a Christian because He brought me to my knees, to a place where I recognized my need for Him. So that's for the believer. For the unbeliever, and I just thought about this as Matthew was talking, the devil uses that same tactic. Well, I would say that it's the devil that says "because I" for the Christian too, right? We're still oppressed. We're just not possessed, but there is still an opposing spiritual world against us. But Matthew said that in his early belief, that he would be told in his head, that he would reinforce this idea: you can't be a Christian because you can't be a Christian because you have an upside down cross on your arm. You can't be a Christian because you did too much. That's the same principle as the Christian who says, I'm a Christian because they're both lies of the devil. It is true. You cannot be a Christian because you. Let's all just own that right now. That is true. So the devil is telling you a truth. He's just using it against you. The reality is you can only be a Christian because of Him, and there is nothing you have done that can separate you from the opportunity to be His, because you are never, ever in a too dark of a place or too far away from His reach. As long as you have breath in your lungs, He is unafraid to go where you are. We love you. More importantly, Jesus loves you, and we'll see you next time on Jesus Loves Addicts.